Well, hey everyone, welcome to the Agency Effect, the show where we explore how today's home, commercial, professional, and consumer services leaders are growing smarter through systems and tech and automation and AI. Today's guest we have with us is Jeremy Henley. He's the founder and CEO of TheQwikFix. So welcome to the show, Jeremy.
Yeah, Jason, nice to meet you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, do me a favor. Tell me a little bit about who you are, a bit about your business, where are you all located, services you specialize in.
So we're located out in Southern California, just a little north of San Diego and Carlsbad, California. And the company QwikFix, we're actually more of a software company, but in the home services space. And we really focus on real estate transactions and helping real estate agents turn home inspections into quotes for repairs and executing on those repairs and helping prepare homes for sale and really trying to focus again on a lot of those home inspection related items.
So that's awesome. As I was reading through your LinkedIn, and here at the end we'll make sure that people understand how to find you on LinkedIn. But it was interesting, to where people can take those home inspections, because obviously buying a home, one of the most important decisions you're going to make. And so that home inspection, I saw that they could actually just take that, upload it, and find contractors right there in their hometown to help them with
Yeah.
those.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We, kind of solving a problem I experienced as buying and selling my own properties and doing a bunch of rehabs and that sort of thing, and just coming across really hard for contractors to show up when you really, really need them during a real estate transaction. They seem to kind of sniff out that it might be a transaction. You probably don't even own the home yet, and they all of a sudden get real busy. So it was always hard to find them and get the information I needed. And it turns out that that's a huge problem for agents and their clients. And it's also a huge problem for contractors because they're not high conversion deals for them, and they're time consuming and information intensive, and so not something they really want to spend a lot of their time on. And so that's what the Quick Fix is really all about, is helping real estate agents and contractors pull that business that is there out of those transactions that's good for them.
Yeah. So obviously, you got started in this because it sounds like you have real estate of your own and have experienced those pain points. So I'm curious, what were those early days of your business like? You saw a problem, saw that it needed to be fixed. How did you start out in this industry? What were those early days like?
Yes. Um, Owning and fixing real estate was always sort of a side hustle for me. I'd been in software, kind of my day job was in software for most of my career. And, so we came up with this idea and thought it might work, but it wasn't something I was going to just stop selling, enterprise level software and go all in on this day one. So, we kind of got the company set up. We got a initial website built out for it, and, kind of we're open for business. But those early days, our marketing plan was to go and meet with agents here in Southern California at all of their in-person marketing events. And that was in January 2020 when we launched the company. So, we all know what happened in late February, March of 2020.
Perfect timing, huh?
Yeah, there was no in-person anything for a while. So, so we kept at it, but it was, straight to cold calling. And, it seems crazy now, but if you go way back to 5 years ago, agents didn't do FaceTime. They didn't do Zoom calls for sure. All that stuff was really new and uncomfortable to them. So it took a lot of, hard work and cold calls and emails to really get things moving for the company.
Sure. So other than a global pandemic, uh, what were some of those other biggest challenges that you guys faced when you were starting out?
Yeah, you start seeing these home inspections, and my initial thought was there's patterns in here, and the stuff I was selling into the software world was predictive modeling, machine learning kind of stuff. We're looking for patterns, and it was insurance related, but it enough of a crossover that I thought there was something there in that data. And we start building out quotes, and it took a long time to get everything that's in every home inspection that might ever pop up into a database. So it took a lot of time and effort in really building that and trying to figure out how to organize all this data of these home inspectors. There's 25 different software companies they use to build their reports. Plus there's, a lot of different ways to say that the kitchen faucet is loose, it turns out. Understanding their language was a big part of making our AI work, that that we've now built out and can know exactly what they mean when they say it in their own language and in their own reporting styles. Those early days of really trying to figure that out before this was, pre-chat GPT or anything like that too. So, trying to, build this kind of stuff before that kind of tool existed. It was difficult, but it started to work.
That's incredible. That's exciting for you guys. So as you started going through that process, what helped you grow that client base reputation? I mean, obviously businesses is all about leads and, you got to have someone to buy your product, buy your service. So what did you all do to grow your client base and that reputation?
Yeah, there was a couple of key things that happened to us that really helped. Putting together a couple of partnerships with home inspectors. So it turns out after a home inspection, the buyer starts talking to the home inspector about things that are wrong. They're kind of getting like a verbal summary, around the kitchen counter or in the driveway or wherever it might happen. And there's the home inspector, the agent, and the people buying the house are typically there. And they have this question of, well, how much is that going to cost? And who do you know? Right. And neither one of them can really answer that question at that moment that you really want that information. And that was what we leveraged. So we partnered up with home inspectors. We focused on agents, focused on the ones that were the busiest and seeing lots of transactions. And, they would get that quote from us. Typically, they would share that quote with the other side of the transaction. And so we started getting more agents that way. We would start doing this kind of thing with some of the bigger home inspection companies that were doing lots of marketing and that sort of thing. And then as, the pandemic restrictions started to loosen up and things came back to in-person events and that sort of thing, we would go and sponsor events and speak to agents, for $100, a couple $100 worth of coffee and donuts. They'll give you a few minutes to speak at a lot of different broker events or caravan events, depending on the area that you're talking about. And, that was just the way we really started to understand how agents would understand what we're saying and how to, what words to use to get their attention and quickly explain what it is we do and how we do it. And then, kind of moving into some more advertising and things like that. But really it was, those earliest days were, shaking hands and kissing babies, kind of, hand-to-hand combat, whatever you want to call it, just really grinding with agent one-on-one before we could really start moving up to partnership deals and deals with brokers and large teams and brands and that sort of thing.
Right. Yeah, that's great. So as I think about the Qwikfix and your business model, obviously, a nice specialized thing, but there are some competitors. So how would you say that you all stand out in your market? What puts you ahead of the others?
So really, one of the biggest things is it's about speed, right? So Qwik, that's kind of how we came up with QwikFix. Is it's way more representative of the speed that we get their quote back to you. In a transaction, like you said, it's one of your biggest decisions you make. It's probably one of your biggest financial decisions ever. It's something most people don't do very often. And so, all of a sudden you find yourself in this position where you're doing due diligence on something you rarely do due diligence on. And you have an agent there to help you, but it's still your call. And, you're trying to make the best decision, tight time frame, a million other things going on too, with maybe selling your own house, moving, financing, reviewing all these documents. And then, one more thing, there's an 85-page home inspection that's got 45 issues in it that you're trying to understand and quantify all within a week or two. Can be really stressful and challenging. And, getting that information really clearly, really well detailed in a kind of plain English, not in, a language that the consumer doesn't really understand and know what they're talking about, and getting it fast. Right. And so that's really what we do that's different. And a lot of contractors don't want to, put effort into this kind of a quote because, again, they're low conversion rate. And so by using the technology, we're able to do a lot of them very cost effectively, and make it worth it.
Absolutely. And I think that you hit on one of the most important things there, which was speed. We live in a day and age where people, they want things, I think of the JG Wentworth, it's my money and I want it now. But, people, they expect things now. And, if they call you for something and you didn't answer in the next 20 minutes, they've moved on. So that's a lost lead, that's lost revenue.
Yeah.
And
Kind of the
unfortunately, they tell people about it too. So
yeah, yep. The younger generation wants an easy button for everything, right?
absolutely. So obviously, being a software company, and you mentioned that your tool has AI in it. How have you guys implemented that tech and automation tools, AI? What was that journey? What are you seeing that path look like?
Yeah. So, the original concept was that we could get enough data and, train an AI model that, there's 25 ways to say that kitchen faucet has a problem and needs to be replaced ultimately. There's a whole bunch of reasons why that might need to occur. So what are all those reasons, and what does that language look like from that inspector to where we can then pull a task from our database and adjust it based on that specific property for the material and the labor to do it in that specific location. And know that that was the right answer to that issue the home inspector flagged. So it was just, really being thoughtful about collecting the data and how we would organize it and how we would review it and ultimately get that to where pretty much anything a home inspector is going to flag, we've thought of a way to understand and make sure that we know what the right repair is for that, how to price it out, and how to adjust that pricing based on the local market for material and labor in that specific home. If it's high-end home, it's going to have more likely a high-end kitchen faucet too, versus another home. So like all of those factors and trying to pull that all together, so that we used some AI eventually to help us build our unique AI that is unique to us. We've also, found it very helpful with just some parts of our customer service into things where, it's kind of that first level of responding to questions of, the chatbot kind of thing, right? And really putting some effort into that and understanding what our clients are looking for when they come to us and really spending time to, inform it so it can inform the clients and be really efficient. So, that's one of the things we really tried to do is, we haven't raised tons of money like a lot of software marketplaces might do. We've just chosen to be really scrappy instead, and use the AI tools as best we can to, not have to hire additional labor in some cases.
Sure. And so I would love to actually talk about that, because I think, as we talk with business owners, someone had made the quote to me that in the next 2 to 3 years, AI will be as common as a computer on a desk. It just will be. And the reality that I think that we're facing right now is you either get on board and adopt it, or you'll be eliminated. And it's not that AI will replace humans, but humans with AI will replace humans without it. And I think that that's the reality. And so we talk with business owners all the time that like, I know that I need this, but I don't know anything about it. As I'm listening to your story, I mean, even you have your own AI, but you used market source AI to help develop that. So what would you say to some of those homeowners, or I'm sorry, some of those business owners that are out there, that are in that position? They know that AI is where they need to be, where they need to go, but they're afraid of it. What would your recommendation and advice be to them?
Yeah, I think it's just start, right. Just start with something. Have it help you write an email, right. I know a business owner who, maybe kind of in that same line of thinking where they're like, I think I need to be doing this, but I just don't know where to start. And they had a client who was upset about something, and they went into their Chat GPT or whichever one they were using and just said, hey, write a letter. I'm the CEO of this company and I need to write a letter to this client. They're upset about this. And, this is why they're not right, because the contract does say some things about this. Write this in a way that, handles it as best as possible, was the prompt, more or less. And all of a sudden they were like blown away with what the result was. And they're like, I could have never written something so perfect for them at that time, um, and like something like that, now they're like hooked on it, right? And they're going to it for everything. But it's just get started with something, even if it's a marketing idea that you can then go and take your own and make it your own. But those kinds of things are, I think, really great places to start. And then start looking at other opportunities where you're loading some of your marketing materials in it, or you're loading maybe some of your financials into it and asking questions that maybe you would love to hire somebody to ask those questions, but you don't have the funds to do it, or maybe you're intimidated by it or whatever. It's a great thing, really great thing for anything you might be intimidated to ask somebody else too, because it's not going to be judgy.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you bring up a good point about using it to help analyze data or do the repetitive tasks. Yeah, I think back to a project that I was able to use AI in a previous organization. I was working for a very very large company, doing almost 500 million in annual revenue as a pest control company, and so I just took it. I'm like, all right, I've got 400,000 customers, exported all of them. I wanted to know who only had pest control. They don't have mosquito, they don't have termite, they just have pest control. It came out to 125,000. We sent that to another AI tool and said, hey, use conversational and generative AI and have a conversation with these people, upsell them on mosquito and termite. And in 90 days, we did $6 million in additional revenue. We didn't hire a single person. It cost me, I think, $90 in tools to do this.
Right.
So the sky is the limit with these AI tools out there and what they're capable of doing. And I think back to one of the things you said about speed, because you mentioned you guys have a chat bot. That's one of the biggest opportunities that I see for business owners is not missing that conversation, because leads are going to call at the time that you didn't expect it, and if you don't answer, they're gone. So
and we've certainly found it for leads, but also in identifying opportunities or identifying problems early with a bug in the system or a request that or an idea to change something or make something different that we wouldn't have thought of or been able to have that conversation with. It's a way to engage. I mean, some people who aren't even clients yet, but engage them in a way to figure out how to make them a client, and understand that you maybe wouldn't have been able to do that on the phone or through a cold email or something like that.
Sure, absolutely. So obviously you've been a leader and owner in these different spaces. What do you wish that you knew sooner as a business owner?
Should have started sooner. I worked for other companies for a long time, and I think one thing is I wish I would have started sooner, so I could start learning sooner and making mistakes sooner, and growing from those mistakes sooner. I would think the other thing is just there's like I don't know, I guess I've always believed this, but it's turning out to be more and more true of just like sticking with it. There's kind of, I mean, we launched the company and then COVID hit, but we stuck with it, and that was good. Right. And then the real estate market's been pretty rough the last couple of years, but we've stuck with it and everything's okay. And, everything continues to go up. So that's a good thing. And we're not even like to the good stuff yet, right? With market and conditions and all that kind of thing lining up with record home sales and stuff again, now that we're a lot more established. So, starting sooner and just sticking with it, I think are, things I would have benefited knowing, like, go even harder.
Yeah. And I think that's even great advice for people that are not business owners yet, but, because I think the entrepreneurial dream lives within a lot of people. They're just too scared to do it. A lot of times that comfort of a paycheck will cripple you. And, and people they sit on the sidelines and make somebody else's dream come true.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
So, with teams of a smaller size, what advice would you give to someone that had a smaller team? Because obviously there are business owners out there that they've only got a 3 to 5 person team, and so as the owner of that, you are the marketing person, you are the accounting person, you are the salesperson. And you have to run your business and do all of these other things. So, what would your advice be to a smaller team like that?
Yeah, I think don't specialize people too soon. But what I mean by that is everybody kind of does everything and has the ability to do everything, and they might be a focus that they have. But making sure everybody has an understanding of how to basically do all jobs within the company, that can be done by the team, would be one. I think another one is really, don't just give them their role and say, see you later and check in with them once a week, but always be in touch with them. It's, you learn running the company that it can be pretty lonely some days. And so that's nice to be able to reach out to them and have, the people you're, sort of in battle with every day. You feel like you're a team and not just everyone's out on their own remote island, which we were remote for a while there. And a lot of that didn't come back, so just finding ways to stay close. My team is, a few of us are here in Southern California, but but they're not in the office here with me, and the others are in other parts of the country. So, but I feel like our team is still pretty tight, even though we are spread across the country, and it's just constant communication and having systems to be able to, you know, interact and joke and play and work kind of all at the same time.
Absolutely. So this is something that no business owner ever wants to face. But if you had to start over tomorrow, what would you do first?
Oh, that's a good one. Um, you know, I think earliest days of COVID, if we had raised more money and were able to go faster at the beginning, which at the time was like really scary. So, I didn't want to make that big bet, especially with other people's money that early on. But right now, I wish I would have, because it would have, we would have had the benefit of a crazy real estate market and really hard access to go anywhere and go inside someone else's house for 6 months there in a lot of the country. And, we had a unique solution that allowed a contractor to be able to provide a firm quote on repairs without actually being there, because there was somebody that walked around and took a lot of detailed pictures and wrote down a lot of things. And so, had we made a bigger bet earlier on, I think we'd be even farther down the road with the company, which, hindsight, right?
Sure, absolutely. So obviously, business owners, you face challenges every single day. And so, in transparency, what would you say the challenges are that you're facing, and areas that you're looking to grow, or opportunities that you're trying to seek out, and how are you addressing those right now?
Yeah. We're in the home repair business, right? So one of the reasons there's an opportunity for us is because a lot of people have frustrations with home repair contractors. And, what I believe is that it's because most people don't hire a contractor to do the same work over and over and over again. It's kind of a new problem you're trying to solve. And so as the homeowner, you're trying to understand it and what's fair, what's right. It's like a new problem almost every time, though. When I would go and speak to real estate agents in the group, have them all raise their hand. And how many people have replaced their water heater? And, half the room, 3/4 of the room raises their hand. How many have done it twice? And half the hands go down. How many of you poor souls have had to replace your water heater 3 times? And there's like 2 people that have done it 3 times, right? And so, like, that's the most experienced purchaser of water heater replacement in that room. And, we're doing it all day, every day, with contractors all over the country. And so we're getting a really good understanding of that. And it's still really hard to, have everything go just as planned and just as expected. So that's the thing that we try to think about. And one of the challenges we work through trying to scale things up is just how we consistently get the same result, in San Diego as we do in Dallas, as we do in Atlanta, as we do in Washington, D.C., for basically the same solution, right? Replace the water heater. And, it's challenging because everyone's coming from different experiences and different walks of life and expectations of what the right way to do it is, even though I think there is like something that works across the board for a lot of these things, like trying to get everybody on the same boat here and going in the same direction is, it's something we work on every day. So.
Absolutely. Well, this next section is probably one of my favorites, and basically it's a quick fire get to know Jeremy quickly.
Okay.
So let's see what would be. I'll preface this. One of my favorite mentors ever had made the comment that leaders are readers, and so you're constantly learning, constantly growing. What would you say your favorite business book or your podcast is right now?
I'm a big fan of the All In podcast. I listen to that one pretty religiously. And then this one probably kind of falls right in the middle, but I still listen to Masterclass too. And I'm always following different people on Masterclass, which I would say is somewhere in between podcast and book. Definitely read my fair share of books over the years too, but, I really like All In, coming from a tech background, most of those guys, if you follow them at all. And
Absolutely.
and then definitely some good business minds there too. now even a little bit more on the politics side of things. But I really liked, even maybe 6 months ago when they were still really heavily in on the business stuff, and
Yeah.
a lot of good stuff to learn there.
I've made many road trips with the help of the All In podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah.
outside of yours, what's one tool or app that you can't live without?
I mean, probably Chat GPT. I mean, we utilize it heavily with loading a lot of our own documents into it, other than the like most sacred data on our end that we wouldn't let them touch. We've got things in there, and it's helpful in, I mean, marketing and customer service and just education and planning and everything. I mean, we use it all over the place. So
Yeah. I don't know how we did without it.
I mean, we have a couple of them, even, like not just that one, but other, whether it's Gemini or something else too, like using them for, they all have their strengths, I think. And so, even using other ones for different things.
Absolutely. What is the weirdest problem you've ever run into in your business? Even if it's a homeowner story or a contractor story, what's the weirdest problem?
Oh. Well, that's a good one. There's, I guess, some of the cases we've run into, and kind of one in particular, and what we're dealing is based on an inspector's, what they see, right? And they're not always going to open and switch things on and off or turn things on and off. And, so we're making kind of a predicted guess on some things. And, we've run into a situation where, the fascia is rotten on the side of a home. Our quote will be to fix what we see and not beyond that. You open that up and remove that board, and you can see beyond that there's significantly more rotten wood, and it's going to be, it needs to be a bigger repair. And then they're saying, well, I don't want you to do that. I just want you to fix just what you quoted us. And it's not possible. And so, like, really trying to explain that you're going to cause more damage to your home by not fully fixing it the right way. And, you don't want to do something that's halfway done, because it's going to cost you twice as much later on, and just trying to explain that, and then get over the, this isn't us trying to upsell or, change directions on you. We got you this information super fast, and the quote to replace the part is accurate. And it said that there might be more issues, and unfortunately there is, and so, those ones are still always a little bit tricky and hard to work through. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, excellent. Well, so that people can find the TheQwikFix. I mean, obviously you all work with contractors, but where can people connect with you? How they get a hold of your software, your app, and take advantage of the TheQwikFix?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the TheQwik, Qwik fix, but thequikfix.com. Whether you're a contractor or an agent or a home buyer or seller, it's free to access our site and make an account. So there's nothing that's going to hold you back there. But I'm also LinkedIn. It's probably one of the places I'm easier to find. So I'm on LinkedIn, and as Jeremy Henley, and happy to chat with anybody there and answer questions. We're always looking for more contractors to join the platform, and always looking to help out more agents and their clients too. So.
Yeah, excellent. And we'll link all of your information down below in the description as well. So last thing, any upcoming projects, enhancements to the TheQwikFix, stuff you're excited about?
So I would say yes. We're about 2 to 3 weeks too soon to speak about it publicly, but stay tuned and follow us closely, because there's going to be some big announcements about some things that should definitely accelerate the business here in the next couple of weeks. So how about that? I'll give you a carrot instead.
There you go. I love the excitement, the anticipation. Well, perfect. Yeah. Well, Jeremy, thanks so much, man, for being on the AIgency Effect. I sure appreciate your time today and all the insight. Again, just business owners helping business owners succeed. So appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me. Have a good day.